Imagine creating something so iconic that it changes breakfast forever. And you did it by accident. No marketing team, no focus group, just one weird kitchen mishap that turned into a global cereal empire. That's the story of the humble cornflake, born out of a medical experiment, family drama, and one very dry dough. And believe it or not, it all started as an attempt to make people eat less exciting breakfasts. So grab your spoon, pour yourself a bowl, and let's crunch into the fascinating and slightly weird origin of cornflakes. Right here on History of Food. Our story begins in the late 1800s in Battle Creek, Michigan, a place that was part hospital, part spa, and part health cult. Meet Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, a doctor and health reformer who ran the Battle Creek Sanitarium, a wellness retreat for America's wealthy and exhausted. Guests came here to recover from stress, indigestion, or just life in general, but instead of cocktails and massages, they got enemas, cold baths, and sermons about clean living. Dr. Kellogg believed in a strict vegetarian diet and was obsessed with the idea that bland foods could purify the body and the soul. He thought spicy, greasy, or meaty foods could lead to impure thoughts. Yeah, you could say he had strong opinions about breakfast. So he and his brother Will Keith Kellogg spent years experimenting with new health foods, mostly made from grains, nuts, and moral superiority. One fateful night in 1894, the Kellogg brothers were working late, trying to create a new kind of easily digestible bread using boiled wheat. They left the dough out overnight, probably because they were exhausted, and when they came back the next morning, it had gone stale and dry. Most people would have tossed it, but the Kelloggs, ever the experimenters, decided to run it through rollers anyway. To their surprise, the wheat didn't turn into a sheet. It flaked. They toasted the flakes, served them to patients at the sanitarium, and people loved them. They were light, crispy, and strangely satisfying. Thus, the first wheat flakes were born. Later, they tried the same process with corn, and the result was even better. Crunchier, sweeter, and more palatable. That's when the real cornflake was born, completely by accident. Moral of the story: sometimes success needs a bit of laziness and stale dough. The Kellogg's patients couldn't get enough. When they returned home, many wrote letters asking to buy the cereal. At first, John Harvey wasn't interested in selling it to the public. He saw it as a health food, not a business. But his younger brother, Will Kellogg, saw something more. He believed these flakes could become a mainstream product, not just a sanitarium breakfast. So while John stayed focused on his medical mission, Will focused on marketing and mass production. In 1906, Will officially founded the Kellogg Company, against his brother's wishes, and began selling Kellogg's cornflakes to the public. The cereal was an instant hit. He even added a little sugar to make it taste better, which horrified John. The two brothers eventually had a massive falling out, partly over sugar, partly over money, and probably a little bit over who was the real breakfast genius. It was one of history's most dramatic family feuds. Imagine Succession, but with cereal. Now that Will Kellogg had cracked the code, other companies rushed to copy him. Competitors like C.W. Post, yes, as in Post cereal, started producing similar products. Post even learned about flaked cereal while he was a patient at the Kellogg Sanitarium. Talk about taking inspiration a bit too literally. Suddenly, breakfast cereal was big business. Americans were obsessed. By the early 1900s, Battle Creek was producing so much cereal that it became known as Cereal City. And all of it traced back to that one accidental batch of stale dough. Fun fact, Will Kellogg was also one of the first business people to print nutrition information on boxes and use advertising mascots. Without him, we might never have gotten Tony the Tiger, Toucan Sam, or Snap, Crackle, and Pop. So yes, marketing and morality teamed up and gave us the breakfast aisle. Let's not forget where this all started. The Battle Creek Sanitarium wasn't just about nutrition, it was about purity. Dr. John Kellogg believed his cornflakes could help curb unhealthy habits, including, well, certain bedtime activities. He preached that bland, wholesome foods could quiet the passions. Of course, there's no scientific evidence that cornflakes have ever stopped anyone from anything, but that belief fueled his obsession with plain, simple food. Ironically, Will Kellogg's sugary version of cornflakes ended up being the exact opposite of what his brother wanted. The cereal designed to prevent temptation became the sweetest thing on store shelves. So in a way, cornflakes didn't just start the breakfast industry. They also proved that sugar beats sanctimony every time. By the 1920s, Kellogg's cornflakes were everywhere. They became a staple of the modern American breakfast, quick, affordable, and shelf-stable. Before cereal, breakfast in the U.S. often meant heavy foods like meat, biscuits, or leftovers. The Kellogg's helped popularize the idea of a light, fast meal you could eat before work or school. That idea spread worldwide. Today, Kellogg's operates in over 180 countries, selling billions of servings of cornflakes each year. And all because someone forgot to clean up the kitchen. Talk about turning a mistake into a masterpiece. Here's something you might not know. That satisfying crunch sound when you pour milk on cereal? That's actually tiny air pockets inside each flake collapsing as they absorb liquid. It's not just a sound effect. It's cereal's way of saying, "Eat me before I get soggy." Scientists have even studied the acoustics of breakfast cereal to understand why people associate that sound with freshness and satisfaction. Here's the twist. Cornflakes weren't just a breakfast invention. They helped shape an entire culture. The Kellogg's didn't just create cereal. They helped invent the idea of healthy convenience. They made breakfast something that could be prepared in seconds, stored for months, and eaten by anyone, anywhere. Their accidental flake became a symbol of modern living, industrialized, packaged, and efficient. And the irony? The cereal that started as a bland health food is now loaded with sugar in most versions, a far cry from its pure beginnings. The moral of the story? No matter how righteous your goals, the market always has a sweet tooth. So the next time you pour a bowl of cornflakes, remember, you're eating the result of a kitchen accident, a sibling rivalry, and a revolution in how the world eats breakfast. From a sanitarium's bland diet to the world's cereal bowl, the journey of the cornflake proves that some of the best inventions aren't planned, they're stumbled upon. And who knows? Maybe your next great idea is sitting in a pot you forgot to clean last night. Until next time, stay curious. And don't be afraid of a little creative chaos at breakfast. If you enjoyed this video, please check out our other bingeable channels. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution.